Well, good evening, everyone. We are talking about the winter outlook tonight. Hope everybody's having a good Wednesday evening. We need some rain, of course. We're going to get some of that for tomorrow night into Friday morning. It's all rain, though. We're not talking snow this time around. The mountains, however, they're going to get a little bit of snow on the backside of this one heading into the first part of the weekend. But that's completely aside to what we're going to be talking about here tonight. It's the annual winter forecast or winter outlook, and it's my best guess on what we can expect this upcoming winter. And it's kind of maybe a little bit more than a guess. We'll call it educated guessing, but a winter forecast can be kind of fun. And we can outline what goes into it, what we can expect this upcoming winter, of course. And yeah, thanks for joining us tonight on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, wherever you are in tonight's digital studio. Let's give it another few seconds for folks to pop in here, and let's pop in some of the graphics. I did not load in my weather computer graphics tonight. We're still having some issues with that. So got the old PowerPoint presentation up here. So we're going to talk about what we can expect for temperature, precipitation, snowfall. Let's see, snow on the ground, Christmas. What else we have? The Westbrook ice disc. Will that make a return? And yeah, so we'll have some fun with it tonight. And that's all this really is. Please take this winter forecast for what it is. It's basically a step above educated guessing in October. But we can get a general idea of how it goes down. And, here's the general rule of how we put these together. Usually you can get an idea of how the winter is going to play out with general weather patterns by looking at how the Pacific Ocean is behaving. We're in a La Nina season this year. There's some warmer than normal water in the northern part of the Pacific. That's going to play a big role in the winter, probably. You can look at that. You can look at what's happening up in the Arctic Circle. And you can take all these weather conditions and you can kind of compare that to what has happened in previous years. And I took 10 years and we call those analog winters, and basically just simply run the numbers on them, run the stats and run the percentages, and we can get an idea of what we can expect this upcoming winter. So that's the general idea of how these work. All right, looks like there are a bunch of you in here right now, so let's just start this up here. Let's see if we can get this to move. Usually I'm using my weather computer, so this is a little different. I don't have a clicker, and I don't have a telestrator either, which is going to bug me. Usually I like to use arrows and circle things. But all right, let's jump right into it. What can we expect this upcoming winter in Maine? We're talking about December through February. Lots of variability. I think that's going to be a common theme this winter. We saw that in 2017. We saw that in 2018. We saw that in 2013. We saw that in 2014. Big warm-ups, big cool-downs. No probably sustained cold. It's going to stick around for an entire month like we had in 2015, but I'm seeing the chance for big warm-ups, big cool-downs. With that said, though, it will probably get well below zero, at least one very good cold shot in January of -10 to about -25 or so. It kind of reminds me of, New Year's morning of 2018, or maybe January 16th, 2009, where we went to 20 to 30 degrees below zero. All right, so around normal is slightly colder than normal. A lot like last winter, this winter shaping up to be colder than normal. The last winter was sneaky cold. In fact, it was, I have it written down here, it was the coldest in 10 years. Not sneaky cold, because it didn't seem that way to me. February was our snowiest month, and we had we had 30 inches of snow, which is almost double what we normally get. So February was pretty snowy, and it's probably going to be like that again. Above normal in precipitation, how that translates to snow is tricky because we deal with snow, sleet, rain. But I think we'll end above normal in snowfall. In Portland, we average 68.7 inches annually. And I think we'll be above that value this upcoming winter. January cold blasts, -10 to -25. Yeah, I think we're probably going to get at least one good shot of Arctic air, and we'll tell you why in a moment. The Westbrook ice disc, it's not coming back. I want it to. Don't think it's coming back in 2026. If you're into maple sugaring like I am, I would plan on an early start to the season. It's probably one of those where February gets cold, it gets warm, it gets cold, warm, but it's enough that it triggers the maple sap. So I think February, it starts a little bit early and a quick transition to spring and March. That one I almost held back on because one of the analog winters is 2018. We had 4 nor'easters in 4 weeks in 2018. I remember that one very well. So that was a winter that held on all the way through March, but if you average out a lot of the Marches that are weak La Ninas like this, a lot of times they give way to spring coming pretty quickly. All right, let's look at snowfall over the last 10 years in Portland. These are Portland's numbers. We have to go back to 2016, 17, 17, 18 to find a winter that was very snowy. I mean, this is 8 out of the last 10 years have been below normal in snowfall. So how does that sound? One might say we're due. I'm one of those. So we're definitely due for a good winter. And I think we have a decent shot at getting one of those. Let me bring this desk up a little bit so I'm not looking down on this here. We're definitely due for a winter that brings a decent amount of snow. Look at 20. I forgot. That shouldn't say 23. It should say 23, 24. I typed that in too quickly. All right, let's go out to the Pacific. This is a good place to start when we're looking at the seasonal forecast. We're looking at a weak La Nina developing. What does that mean? The water is a little bit colder than normal in the equatorial Pacific. Not much. It's going to be weak, and it probably will trend towards what we call neutral by the end of winter. So I don't think the La Nina is going to play a huge role in it. But typically with weak La Ninas, usually in the North Pacific, you get some pretty warm temperatures. What's very unique about this year and last year is the North Pacific and up through the Gulf of Alaska was extremely warm, and even all the way back through far western parts of the Northern Pacific. So I think that's going to play a big role and probably the biggest weather driver we have for this upcoming winter. So let's take a look at what happens there. We're looking at our different computer models and what to expect for this upcoming, we call ENSO. What we're looking at is a weak La Nina or neutral for the months of December, January, February. Notice that the trend slowly starts to work its way up towards what we call neutral. So it's not going to be a strong La Nina. If we do get a La Nina, it's very, very weak. And typically when we have that sort of setup with the weak La Nina and also the warm Northern Pacific, again, that's a common theme that's going to keep coming back, you get a polar jet stream, which becomes very active. And that's an important piece of this winter's forecast, not the weekend forecast, this winter's forecast, because the polar jet stream becomes very, very active. And a lot of times that can introduce modified Arctic air that dives south through Canada. It comes right into the Northern Plains, the Midwest, and usually at times into the Northeast. A lot of times we can get a pretty active storm track with that setup as well. And a lot of times you can get some pretty quick hitters, those quick Alberta Clippers. I wouldn't be shocked to see a bunch of those this winter as well. So in that sort of setup, a lot of times you get cold that spills over into the Northern Plains, the Great Lakes. And I think that we will see enough shots of cold air, again, varying between warm and cold, enough shots of cold that the winter will average out colder than normal in the Northeast and most of the Northeast, at least Northern New England, back through New York and the Great Lakes. But coldest relative to normal is probably the Great Lakes and back through the Northern Plains. Florida should be a good year to go to Florida, right? Temps will be warm there. And down in Florida, snowbirds will be a little bit below normal in precipitation as well. All right, with an active storm track, I feel pretty confident we will be above normal in precipitation. But again, the question is, how does that precipitation translate to snow when you're dealing with ice? Sometimes you're dealing with mix. And I think we will get a lot of mix, rain, snow mix storms out of this one. We're probably going to be above normal in snowfall. I think the first time in, I don't know how many years, we'll probably get, my guess, over 70 inches of snow. Everything seems to be pointing towards that, except some computer modeling, which has been a little bit stubborn. But we'll look at that in a few minutes here. But as far as, what has happened in the past, how the pattern is shaping up, my guess is we'll be above normal in snowfall for just about everyone in the Northeast. There's a closer inspection of that. So there you go, with areas in the Midwest, Ohio Valley, Great Lakes, all the way through the Northern Plains, probably seen the bulk of that. All right, looking at all La Ninas for the months of January through March. NOAA decided to do this. I don't know why they went January through March. I like to see December through March. But this is the snowfall distribution anomalies. You can see a good chunk of New England is in the darker blue. This extends back through the Great Lakes and through the plains. So this is when you consider all the La Ninas going back to 1959, or weak La Ninas. That's a snowfall distribution. That looks kind of similar to the map I just showed you. These are all the weak La Ninas that run for December through February. No, October through April. I'm sorry. But this is NOAA's map. It came from National Weather Service, and it only runs through 2009. So some other La Ninas that it does not include, or maybe last year, for instance, however weak, or some of the other ones after 2009, 2012, 2013, which is also a year. What is there? I don't know if 14, 15 was in there, but yeah, so it doesn't include all of them. But you see the snowfall distribution. Snowfall anomalies a little bit above normal. So NOAA sees that as well. This goes back to 1950 to 1951, weak La Ninas. I decided not to go past 30 years. I think that's important because once you go past 30 years, I think everything's a little different in our weather and our patterns. Our ocean is a lot different, for instance, as far as the temperatures are. So I went back to, I thought I had this graphic in here. Hold on a sec. I went back to 1990. So you can kind of see in the top of this graphic, this is also, we're looking at our anomalies as far as temperatures go. I use last year, 24, 25, 17, 18, 13, 14, winter of 12 and 13. Remember the blizzard of 13? I do. February 7th and 8th. 08, 09, got really cold February 16th that year. 05, 06, 2000, 2001, 95, 96. I almost didn't put that in. I was hesitant with it. And there's two very good reasons why I put that 95, 96 winter in there. I was in high school, and I remember not having a lot of school in February that year. I was a senior in high school, and I remember that one very well. We got a lot of snow. 89 and 90 also included in that as well. So those are that's the temperature distribution. This comes from Josh Timlin. He made this for me a couple of years ago. So this goes through 2021, but we're looking at from 1941 to 2021, all the different ENSO phases, whether you're looking at La Nina, El Nino, neutral. And notice the third line over is the weak La Nina. So is that right? Yeah. Weak La Nina. And you can see as far as snowfall, I should say the snowfall. I thought it was temperatures. I have graphics out of line here, and I apologize. But you can see we're a little bit above normal when you average in all of those for snowfall. So we have probably a 70% chance of being above normal in snowfall just based on that. Now, as far as temperatures go, looking at the same data, that third line over, if I was able to illustrate it for you, that third line over, it's like the whitish or the lightest blue, perhaps. Looking at all those data plots, the one in the middle, notice how the mean or average is a little bit colder than our normal, which is the dotted line right there. So that seems to be lining up with everything I'm seeing for what this winter should shape up like. And this is for the grid point Portland. So once again, I have to thank Josh Timlin for making this for me back in 2001. All right, this is what I wanted to show you earlier, but these are the years that we highlighted to analyze. These are the years that line up the best. We call these analog years. I included last winter. Last winter lines up the best, I think, with 2013, 2014. Those are the two most similar winters that we've had over the last 30 years to what we have this upcoming winter. 17, 18's in there. Some big things happened in 18. We had that blizzard. We had in January, we had, I remember it was 29.7 degrees below zero on New Year's morning in 2018. I lost a dogwood tree and I lost a peach tree because it was so cold. In addition to that, those trees were also stressed because we had a drought in 2017. Sounds familiar, doesn't it? 2016, 17 is another one of those. 13, 14. 14 was pretty snowy. We had 84 inches of snow in Portland, 2013, 14. 12, 13, it doesn't really work out great, but we had the blizzard in, that was a slow, that got going very slow that winter. February 7th and 8th, we had the big blizzard where, Portland had, 32 inches of snow, which is the highest amount on record. I remember that one because we had 15 inches of snow in just 6 hours. I slept right over there. I was in the studio that night. 08, 09. I remember that one well as well. There's that one, January 16th, Maine set a new state record for coldest on record. Let's see, that was Big Black River, 50 degrees below zero. It was like 25 below at my house that morning. I remember 05, 06, another one of those. 2000, 2001, another big one. 95, 96. I love to talk about that one because I remember it very well. I was a senior in high school. And as seniors, you don't have to make up the snow dates because you get out early. So I remember that being a big part of it. 80, 89, 90, another year. All of these are either weak La Ninas or some of the other factors that came into this. Some of these had very dry summers. So I think that played a role in it. I'm always in the camp where Mother Nature likes to be in equilibrium. So if it's dry for a while, there's a very good chance it's going to rain or snow again pretty soon. So, I have a feeling that that's going to play a big role in our winter forecast. We had so many months of dry conditions that this upcoming winter will probably make up for that. Let's talk about last winter for a minute. This was Sebago Lake. I want to say this is the first week in February. This is a week later. Sebago Lake froze over for the first time in 6 years. I think that's what it was. Yeah, 6 years. So that was last winter. It got cold and it got snowy in February. I think that's going to happen again. Actually, I should have put that in the winter forecast. Sebago Lake is going to freeze. The Maine Bay is going to freeze. This was last winter. I found this in the old Facebook page here. I forgot I posted this. It was the coldest. When you average out the highs and the lows every day throughout the winter, we came out 24.9 degrees, and it was the coldest since 2014, 2015. You probably remember February of 2015. It was the coldest on human record. Yeah, even colder than, was it 34, when you could walk to Peaks Island on the sea ice. The only reason we couldn't walk to the islands on sea ice that year was because we had a very, very warm December. I remember playing football with my brother-in-law in December of 2014. Outside, it was like 60 degrees on Christmas or something. But yeah, last winter was the coldest in 10 years. This is 09, one of those analog years. This is January 16th, 2009. Maine set a state record of 50 degrees below zero, Big Black River. Looking at some of the weather maps, when you take into account all those years, again, we're just taking those years and looking at the winters. And what we're doing is we're just running the statistics out of this. And this is what we call upper 500 millibar height anomalies. So basically in the areas in the lighter colors, that's when you have big ridging, high pressure, usually warmer. In the darker blues and purples and stuff, we have troughing, and it's usually a little bit colder and a little bit more stormy. So that is the 500 millibar height anomalies. This one might be something you're a little more accustomed to seeing. This is the air temperature anomalies. Notice how it's cold through a good chunk of the Northern Plains, the Great Lakes, the Midwest, all the way into the Northeast. The big question is, can this cold sustain all the way to the Northeast? I think it will. And this is the map we already looked at. I have it in there twice. But these are those years with the temperature anomaly. This is the precipitation anomaly. Nothing really jumps out at you here, but we're at least normal for most of the Northeast. A little bit below normal, actually, coastal Maine. You see that? We'll see how that plays out. I don't think that's going to be the case, though. But you get the general idea that it's drier in these sort of setups through the southeastern part of the U.S., from the Mississippi Delta. It's a little bit more precipitation there, but also down into the southwestern portion of the U.S., all the way to Texas and Oklahoma, Nebraska, a little bit drier than normal. All right, so we take all those years, and what I like to do is just average them out. Just look at what we had for snowfall, and 80% of them were above normal in snowfall. There you go. So I see no reason to argue with that. So this winter we have an 80% chance of being above normal in snowfall. As far as averaging out the temperatures, 70% of those years were colder than normal. So I think we have a pretty good shot at being colder than normal. Kind of like last year was sneaky cold. We were the coldest in 10 years last winter. In addition to that, I don't know how much this plays into it, but I'm, again, in the camp that when you have a dry summer, the Mother Nature wants to be in equilibrium, and you're going to pay the price down the road. You're going to eventually get precipitation, whether it's rain or snow. This is a good example of that. These are the driest Maine summers going back to the 1960s. The three driest summers going back to the 1960s are 2025, the winter summer we just went through, 1995, and 1968. And when I first saw this summer, I said, oh boy. Actually, it was the first week in September. I said, oh boy, those 2 years jump out at me like that, because winter of 95, 96, the following winter, got a lot of snow. We had over 100 inches of snow in Portland, and 68, 69. If you're around that winter, I unfortunately wasn't, but everyone I talked to says, Charlie, we did not go to school at all in February. We had so much snow. Mount Washington had 600 inches of snow, around 600, a little bit less than that, but they average about 300 inches of snow. And I've seen the pictures of Tuckerman Ravine. I mean, it was wild that winter. They got a lot of snow in February. But those two winters, 68, 69, 95, 96, are in the top 5 snowiest winters on record in Portland, going back to the 1870s. So this is kind of a stretch a little bit, looking at dry summers and how that correlates with snow, but why not? I mean, we're just having fun talking about what could happen this upcoming winter. It's happened in the past. Why can't it happen this winter? So another reason that I think this winter is going to be a snowy one. Years ago, this is probably 20 years ago, I sat over at the Portland Library and I went through the microfilm at a lot of these fun weather events that we had. And I just went through Portland Press Herald, and these are some captions that I grabbed from newspapers. I spent a whole afternoon that, when you get in the remember in the microfilm, though, the microfiche, you get like dizzy and stuff looking at it. This is one of those days, but this is February 11th, 1969. Maine digs out from 24-inch snow. Marathon nor'easter. This is another date. Pelts for the state for the second day. Up to a foot more snow expected to fall today. Wind-driven snow paralyzes southern Maine. Pike closes. Cars littered roadsides. York deputy dies. Ooh, that's not good. Shoveling snow. All right. Well, that's not good. That just took a bad turn right there. But yeah, so that's dry summers usually equal snowy winters. There have been a bunch that haven't been snowy, though, so it's worth mentioning that. Most of them have. When I ran the numbers on, it was like 60 or 70%. So why not? Let's look at some modeling. Modeling sometimes can play a fun role in this. With that said, though, a lot of times modeling cannot see cold temperatures in the winter. So if it looks like it's normal or average, a lot of times that means it's going to be colder than normal. So we'll see how that plays out. But this is the European model, usually the superior model to a lot of these. On the left, this is the Canadian model. On the right, we're looking at precipitation. I don't know why I put it in this order. I apologize if it gets screwed up here, but precipitation looks kind of the same, right? I mean, a little bit above normal in the Northeast, the Canadian especially, but you see that little blurb that we have in the Midwest and down through the Ohio Valley and the Northern Plains and the Pacific Northwest. This is precipitation for the UK Met, which is a European model, which I use quite often. You see kind of the same layout, drier over the south, wetter off to the north. These are anomalies, so anomalies from our normal, of course. This is on the right, the CFS V2 model, which is the US model. Not the most accurate one, but you kind of get the idea that, let's see, the Northern Plains and also the Midwest, Ohio Valley, a little bit wetter. So we'll see how that translates to snow. European model versus Canadian model on temperatures. What a difference here, right? Look at this one. The European model is saying, nope, it's going to be a warm winter. I would say that's something the European model struggles with a little bit, is it just can't see cold air. It's seeing it up into British Columbia, Saskatchewan, Manitoba. But we'll see if it actually translates all the way down into the Northeast. With that said, though, the seasonal forecast run for September, December, January, February for October, which is initialized in October, is significantly cooler in that region than the September run. So my guess, the November run will be a little bit colder as well. We'll see. But how does that compare to the Canadian model? Canadian says, well, it's going to be cold. It's going to be cold in the Northeast. It's going to be cold in the Great Lakes. So I see no reason to argue with that. UK Met model with temperatures, it's warm for just about everyone. CFS V2 model, the US model, it's warm for just about everyone except the Northeast. Maine, New Hampshire, Northern New York, and of course the blues showing up into Canada again. I would say the slam dunk in these sort of setups is usually in that area, in the southern provinces of Canada, through the Northern Plains. I mean, that's a pretty good shot of getting that northern jet to be active, and you have a pretty good shot at getting some cold shots. So this is the C3S multi-system precipitation model. This is basically takes into account a bunch of different computer models. This takes into account ENSO, takes into account the Japanese model, the European model, the UK Met, the Australian, the German model. There's a bunch of them that factor into this. And you can see the temperatures on the right, precipitation on the left. Pretty warm for everyone, but you still have that blurb in southern provinces of Canada up through Alaska where it's colder. And the precip looks pretty similar to what we had outlined earlier, where most precip relative to normal will be in the Pacific Northwest, Northern Plains, Great Lakes region. Will it get into the Northeast? Probably. I think it will. That's my guess. So let's talk about some details now. All right. When I analyze those winters that we talked about, 90% of them had snow on the ground Christmas morning in Portland. There we go. Check. Lock it in. There'll be snow on the ground this Christmas. I think. We'll see. January cold snap. I mean, a few reasons for that. The 2018, 2009, you get these big shots of cold, but they're not sustained. So you're going to get them, 10 to 30 degrees below zero. It might come for a couple days, and then it's in and out. I will say a lot of times when you get these Arctic blasts that come in, a lot of times when that happens, they come and go, and they end with a snowstorm. So usually when it gets cold, sometimes you get a storm that spins up, and you can get some decent snowstorms out of these setups. We saw that in 2018, 4 days after the 29.7 degrees below zero. I just remember that because it was at my house, on my Radio Shack thermometer. You had a snowstorm. You had a blizzard, in fact. So we had 2 blizzards that year. But I think the years that line up the best are 2013, 14, and last winter. And we had 2 blizzards in 2014. One of them, the temperature was below zero while it was snowing. I remember that one well as well. Snow on the ground Christmas, January cold snap. Oh, no Westbrook ice disk. I don't think that's going to happen, and an early start to maple sugaring. All right. I left a few things out of here, but this is basically what we can expect. Lots of variability, big warm-ups, big cold snaps, around normal or slightly colder than normal, above normal precip. I think that will translate to above normal snowfall. Hopefully the ski resorts get a lot. Snow on the ground Christmas morning. There's that cold snap. The ice disk will not return. Early start to maple sugaring. I wanted to talk a little bit about the Arctic oscillation. I think that we will see a weakening of the polar vortex this winter. And when that happens, it starts to stretch and becomes displaced. Sometimes you get some of that, the polar vortex to break off, and it comes into North America, into the northern parts of the United States. So that happens a lot. Didn't happen last winter, but you can usually see when that's going to happen from what we call a sudden stratospheric warming, a big warming in the upper levels of the atmosphere, and that's going to displace the cold as the polar vortex basically starts to wobble. So I remember a couple of years ago talking to a friend of mine who owns a ski shop in New Hampshire, and I said, hey, it's going to get cold in 4 weeks, and we're going to get a lot of snowstorms. The problem with these polar vortex displacements is you never really know where they're going to go. That was the winter, it was around COVID. That was the winter where Texas got it. Remember, it went all west of us and went straight from Canada right down to Texas. And it shut down the grid in Texas. It got so cold down there, it shut down the grid. And we really didn't get the extreme cold. Sometimes we get it, though. And, we got it in 2018. We got it in 2009. I think we're going to get it this winter. We're going to get it. So there we go. Lock it in. It's going to be a cold winter, but it will have big temperature fluctuations. Let's see if we can get back to this here for a second. I'll pull this back up, add to stage. Hold on. All right, so if you're just joining us, we can run through at least some of the Cliff's Notes version here. All right, with a weak La Nina and a warm northern Pacific, we have a pretty active polar jet, which introduces cold and snowy patterns. And let's see here. Here's the above normal precipitation in the Northeast. Here's the above normal snowfall in the Northeast. There it is right there. And do we have temperatures in here? There we go. And a little bit colder than normal in the Northeast as well. We'll see how that plays out. Modeling is very, very warm. So We'll see if the models win out or if the pattern recognition wins out. We'll see how that works out. All right, let's check out some of your questions here. Kyle says, when's the first snowfall you thinking? All right, first inch of snow. That's a good question. I'm going to go December in Portland, December 2nd. There we go. Yeah, December 2nd. Oh, thanks, George. Appreciate it, bud. Oh, my friends Dana and Amy. Tell Madison I say hello. Yeah, she's going to want a snowy winter, I think. Nice to see you guys on here. All right, keep the snow in the mountains. Snow is not Christmas. Don't wish for snow. All right. Actually, 2017 is an analog year. We had a blizzard. We had blizzard warnings, I think, on Christmas that year. I remember that. They weren't needed, though. I remember the Weather Service issued a blizzard warning. It's like, no, we're not going to get blizzard. We never got blizzard conditions. I graduated in 91. All right. 1991. All right. Yeah, so 1991. What happened in 90? Well, we had the hurricane in 91. That was so you graduated in May or June, and then there was Hurricane Bob a couple months later, right, Bernard? Hey, Riley. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Got 3 sleds. Can't wait. Yeah, me too. Actually, I don't own a sled, but I'd like to go snowmobiling. That'll be fun. Wendy, Lewiston. All right. Thanks, Wendy. Are you going to be watching your snowstorm reports early this year or more towards Christmas? Oh, do you think it will come early? I don't know. I haven't thought much about that, Mark. I don't think it'll be exceptionally early. I mean, we always get snow in November, right? I don't know. The answer to that is I don't know. I think when you average everything out, though, it'll be snow. There'll be a decent amount of snow this winter. I will get one good blizzard, I bet. And it's most active is going to be January and February. Oh, flying home. Welcome back tomorrow, Jeffrey. That sounds great. Sako is watching. Thank you, Angela. Time to get your batteries checked. Yeah, good point, right? And Joe, maybe put some air in your tires too, right? That's what you want to do. you always get that light that shows up says you need air in your tires after the first couple cold nights. Yeah, just like Tom Brady's footballs, right? The ideal gas law. Oh, the Blizzard of 78. Yes. Oh, I wish I remember that one. I have a picture. I'm a baby in that one, though. I was only a few months old. Oh, Storm Bryant. All right. I saw you back at the Buxton Mini Mart. Thank you very much. Appreciate that, bud. It was good to see you at the Mini Mart. Great prices on gas over there and excellent pizza. I would go with that. Hope you get some good riding in as well. All right. Madison's checking in again, hoping for snow on Christmas. All right. That's a tough one. Snow on Christmas. How about snow on the ground Christmas, Madison? But I don't know. It'll be fun to have snow on Christmas. I bet there'll be 6 inches of snow on the ground Christmas morning. Just a guess. Hope we have snow on Christmas, Kyle says. I hope we do too. Joe, so he wants the antennas on your cars to identify them in the snowbanks, right? We haven't had a winter like that in a while, where the snowpack just keeps building and the glacier keeps building. I think the last one was like that was 2015, right? Every now and then you get those snowy winters, but they melt. It's like, what was the one a few years ago? What year was that? 2023. Yeah, it was 2023, right before the big. Was that the Grinch storm year? So that was the year that I think we got 17 inches of snow, like in mid-December. And I said, slam dunk, it's going to be a white Christmas. And then we got that Grinch storm and it rained and all the snow went away like Christmas Eve. It was horrible. Oh, I remember being foggy and that was good. Oh, my Aunt Stacy is checking in. Thank you, Aunt Stacy. And you're welcome for the garlic. That's awesome. Thanks for checking in. All right. Tell Rick I say hi. When's the first snow falling, you thinking? Oh, yeah. We already talked about that, Kyle. December 2nd. I don't know. Just a guess. This is all just a guess. Don't take it too seriously, please. It's educated guessing, we'll call it. All right. Let's see. There's your snowfall for the last 10 years. There's your Pacific this winter. Weak La Nina trending towards neutral. Above normal snowfall. I think we hit everything, right? Talked about the polar vortex. There's other things we can talk about. The North Atlantic oscillation, if you like, but we'll leave it at that tonight. Snowfall distribution from NOAA. All right, we've gone over it a couple of times. All right, we'll get back to your Wednesday evening. Tomorrow's our Rennie's forecast, so we'll be back to the digital studio tomorrow night. So if you want to check in, then we'll be here. I'm gonna do a little early tomorrow night, like 7:30 or so. But I'll let you get back to your Wednesday evening. Let's hope everyone has a great winter. Of course, we have some rain on the way tomorrow night, some heavy rain at that. There may even be some scattered outages. I don't think it's going to be widespread, but with some leaves still in the trees, it's worth mentioning there could be some scattered outages. So we'll be monitoring that tomorrow night. And for the trick-or-treaters, well, the wind will be active that night as well, but it should be dry. So good news there. All right, folks, have a nice night, and we'll check back in tomorrow. Take care.